Welcome back. We're now going to show you how to change the bit in the router table. All router tables will be somewhat similar to each other. When you first get to it, obviously this one I've cleaned off, but you're probably going to have to clean it off first. Clean it up so you can actually see what you're working with. The fence itself is locked down in a couple positions. On the far end here, there's a simple little lever that you lift up in order to release the fence, and on this end, there's a twist knob that you need to untwist in order to slide the fence back. Slide the fence back so it's out of the way. It now exposes the throat plate and your cutting tip. Before you do any of the operations in here, we should really be locking out the saw. Okay, so to lock it out, we're going to pull the pin on the lockout switch. This lockout switch is now disabled. If you don't have a lockout pin like this, what you should do is unplug your power supply. This will also lock it out, and make sure when you unplug the power supply that you lay it across the piece of equipment. That way anybody coming up here can easily recognize that you are servicing this piece of equipment. They should not plug it back in. Okay. Next step, we're going to take the throat plate out. Here's our tool. It's going to go into the pins of the throat plate, and we're going to rotate this to the right in order to unlock it. Okay, we're going to unlock it. We're going to take this, put this on the side. Then what we have to do, we have to raise the cutting tip above the table so that we can release it. So this is the tool we're going to put into our height adjuster. It needs to slide all the way down into the wheel, and then we're going to be turning it up. As we turn it up, the bit is going to be coming above the table. Once it gets above the table, we'll now take our tool out of here, place our tool down the side, and now we're going to require the two wrenches. Two wrenches. They're going to go on the nuts here. The wrench on the bottom, we're going to put on the one side, the one on the top, we're going to the opposite way. The reason why we do this is then we can take our hands on the wrenches and we can pull the wrenches together using our hands and our fingers. That's all the tightness that this should have. It should not ever be tighter than that. Okay? So we're going to put the two wrenches on there so we can get our hands on here, and then we're going to loosen it off just like that. That's as loose or as tight as those items should be. Leave the bottom wrench on and turn the nut up until it gets snug, because the bit still won't come out, and then we may have to use the wrench in order to turn it a little bit further, and then you saw the bit turn. The reason why the bit turned is because this is now all loose. This will now slide out. Okay? In order to replace the bit, that's all you simply do is take it out like that in order to put in your other bit, and I'm just going to reinstall this bit in here for you. We're going to push it down in there, push it to the bottom, and then lift it up approximately 1/8 of an inch. We don't want it all the way down to the bottom, because if it binds in there, it could actually cause a vibration. It may not be sitting square. So always lift it up a little bit off the bottom of the hole. Tighten down the top nut by your fingers. Take your wrenches now, and instead of having the wrenches positioned like this, we're now going to put the top wrench on the opposite side. Put the wrenches on the opposite side, and again, when you're tightening it up, take one hand and squeeze them together. That's as tight as that needs to be. Don't use both your arms, both your hands with as much force as you have, okay? Because that will create a problem, because the next person may not be able to get it out, okay? Once you're finished with these tools, put them back on the side of the cabinet. Put our height adjuster back in here. Sometimes takes a little bit to bring this one down. It's a pretty tight fit. And we're going to lower it down so that the cutting tip is going to be below our throat plate. Okay, put the throat plate in place here. There are 3 locking tabs to lock in place. Lock it back in place. Take this tool, place it back on the side of the cabinet. And now we're going to lower the cutting tip until it's below the surface of the throat plate. Looks like this one needs to be cleaned a little bit because it's jamming on the way down. This happens, as you're going to see, because when you're cutting, there's a lot of wood material that goes through this. There's a lot of dust that gets created, which is why we're always going to be using the dust collector. Okay, our cutting tip is now below the surface of the throat plate. We can remove our height adjuster, and we're now ready to start setting up our machine in order to start cutting the wood that